Welcome to the Reinvent Your Life podcast, the show that talks about why we do what we do and how we can do it better.
Welcome to the Reinvent Your Life podcast. My name is Chaz Molesky, and today I am joined by one of my biggest mentors, as well as dear friend, Dennis Carrol. Dennis is a certified life coach and a licensed master practitioner of NLP. And I've been really excited about doing this episode for a very long time now. And I know I've been teasing it out with a couple episodes prior to this, but I've been excited because Dennis has taught me so much over the course of my own career, becoming a coach and learning really exactly what coaching's even about and the real core root of everyone. Dennis has taught me more about understanding people than my own parents. So that's been a great asset to have in my life, and I'm really excited to have him on the show. So thank you, Dennis, for being a part of this.
Well, thank you, Chaz, for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
Awesome. All right, so let's get right into it. I don't like the whole foreplay that a lot of podcasts go into, so we're going to jump into it. Everybody listening, the whole core of this for everyone home, remember, take a lesson out of this and apply it into your life. So please listen with intention and use the information that you learn. So, Dennis, start us off. Why did you even get involved in coaching NLP? What interested you in that? How did that begin?
You know, it really is like a long, strange trip to get me here. Yeah. So, 2009 and prior, I had really been having a hard time. I'd been struggling for a long, long time in my life, and I had been diagnosed with severe chronic depression, mood swing disorder, and PTSD. And so I was living with this sense of fear about myself, about who I really was at my core and what I was worthy of in life. And I ended up going to a life coach. And before I left his program, I was so profoundly different that I knew in my heart, I knew 100% that I was going to learn how to do this, to pay it forward, because that program gifted me so much that there was nothing was ever going to stop me. And I was just going to. And so I've been practicing now for 10 years. I continue my studies. I consider myself a student of coaching because every client that comes in teaches me something. I continue to study with Dr. Bandler and John Laval, who are literally the top two guys in the world at this stuff. And it's exciting to me. I don't see me ever stopping this learning process and applying it. And honest to God, Chaz, if I could do this for free, I would. Yeah. I love what I do.
That's awesome. Yeah. That's amazing. So let's give everyone listening a little insight into what NLP is, because I know when I started, I didn't know at all what that even meant or what that stood for. And I'm sure there's a bunch of people right now listening saying, well, that sounds great, but what is NLP? So if you could give them your own definition of what that is, and then also how that applies to just everyone.
So it's a broad question. I mean, it really is. NLP is a large body of works, and it's pioneered by Dr. Richard Bandler, who in the 70s began to study a handful of therapists who were getting extraordinary results at the time when most people were still lying on a couch freely associating, just talking about whatever came into their mind. And so he studied these people, and he saw that they were, even though they didn't know each other, they were doing very similar things to get these great results. And he took the information and expanded on it. And he continues to expand on it today. And NLP since the 70s, since the 1970s, has been shown to be the most effective method at causing and creating rapid and radical changes in people's quality of life by impacting their subconscious mind. And it's just amazing. I love NLP. Just love what it's done for me and what it does for my clients.
So speaking of your clients, who do you work with?
Well, you know, Chaz, I mean, I work with anybody who truly wants to help. You know, some people come in, and I don't take everybody. And that's why I do a complimentary session before I sign anyone up for my program, because sometimes people come in and they want the changes, but they're not willing to do the work. I'm just a coach. I'm on the sideline. I can help them understand what they're doing and how to change it. But they have to be willing to get out of their comfort zone, to get uncomfortable doing things they haven't perhaps done for years, to get the changes that they tell me they want. So not everybody's willing to do that. Some people would rather stay in their comfort zone and go to their grave unhappy and unfulfilled than step out of that comfort zone and face the uncertainty that goes along with that. And that's really what stops a lot of people, is the uncertainty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now, in the time that you've been doing this, because you've been coaching now for how long?
It's over a decade now.
Over a decade.
Yeah,
wow.
went fast too.
Wow.
Yeah.
Man, has it really been that long?
Yes, it has.
Oh, wow. So, okay, in that time frame, of the people that you've had, let's say, that maybe weren't completely ready for coaching, what is something that would prevent somebody from actually taking that jump? Because obviously you and I know the benefits and what that can do for somebody, but obviously it's a very uncertain territory, but that's also scary for a lot of people of admitting something might need work or need help, or even taking that leap of faith to say maybe this will work, especially for those that, I know myself in my own coaching, and I'm sure you do too. I've had people that have been in therapy for 10, 15 years, that still aren't seeing any progress or any results. So they don't think I'm going to help them any more than any other therapist they would go and see. So what would you say is the biggest thing preventing a lot of people?
Well, you hit on it when in the question. It really is the uncertainty. And oftentimes I am the last stop. Like people go to therapists, counselors, psychiatrists. I even have people who've been inpatient therapy, for months at a time, and they come to me and they think, how is this guy going to help me? What's he going to do that I haven't already seen? And so, if they don't come with an open mind, they have to be willing to accept that maybe there's something else. Maybe they haven't tried something else. But if it's the uncertainty, oftentimes that stops them, and it shows up in different ways. So, uncertainty can show up in the way like, what does this guy know? Like, I've already tried everything. So that comes up as a sense of certainty, like I'm certain that he doesn't know anything, but they don't really know. So they dismiss it out at hand. Other people come in, and because I might be their last stop, they're so afraid that, what if this doesn't work? What if life coaching doesn't work for me? Then what? And so they're afraid to take that step. They're afraid to give it that one last shot, and if they fail at that, then they feel like there's no hope for them. Mm. And then there's the final people who just don't believe that you can do what we can do.
Yeah.
They don't understand because they haven't experienced it. And when people come in, I often will tell them to look at my Google reviews in advance. I said, those Google reviews represent the typical results I get for people. And if you work for me, I want you to expect that same high result, because I want them to have the frame of possibility that this could really be something that could change my life. I want them coming in with that thought process and to hold me to that high standard that I hold myself to. And I think in that space, people experience extraordinary results.
Yeah.
Yeah, when they expect it. The higher their expectation, the higher their outcome.
Right. So give me a distinction for that, because I know I've gotten this question a lot too, and it sometimes feels like my answer continues to change as I learn more and I learn the distinctions between the two. But say somebody comes into you, they've been in therapy or they've been working through therapy for a long time, and they ask you, what's the difference? Because I've gotten that all the time, right? Like, well, what's the difference between coaching and therapy? Or people just think it's another version of therapy, right? It's another branch of that. So how would you distinguish between the two?
Well, simplest forms is well, first off, coaching is finite. If you go to a therapist, and I did for years, and I went every Tuesday, and I knew every Tuesday at 2:00 I had an appointment in my future, and that projected out indefinitely. So subconsciously, I'm projecting out appointments with a therapist well into my future. So what else am I projecting out into my future? My problems.
Wow.
Right? So I'm projecting problems into my future subconsciously, and now I'm dependent on somebody else to help me solve them. So I don't think that's a really good model to set up your subconscious to be successful with. So the coaching's 8 sessions, and it's designed to set you up to be able to coach yourself at the end of it. So you don't need anybody else to get through life. And the other distinction I would like to make is that coaching is very much solution-oriented. And not for all, but for most therapists and therapies that I've encountered, it's more about the problems. It's more about focus on your problems and focus on your problems and focus on your problems. And all I ever did was talk about my problems until I got tired of talking about them. And once I got tired of talking about them, that's when I made some changes. And the final distinction I would make between therapy and coaching, in my opinion, is therapy can get you out of pain into relief. But coaching takes you from pain to extreme pleasure. And that, I think, is the most profound difference between the two of them.
Wow. I'm going to steal that, just so you know. I'm stealing.
You're welcome to it.
That's great. All right, cool. So, obviously, the current state of affairs of things, and especially in 2020, and how this year is kind of progressing or has progressed so far up to this point, has left a lot of uncertainty, fear, and, overall frustration, unknowns, right? It's been the ultimate theme of what's next. It's kind of like the revolving question. And as a result of that, you can see it, and we were just talking about this before we did the podcast. We talked about the media and the news and all of the things that are being pumped out into everywhere. So with the current state of affairs and how things are, if somebody is feeling overwhelmed, or they're feeling like every day is a new challenge, there's a new struggle, and they can't seem to get ahead of it, how would you help that person maybe find some center of balance or some way of just focusing on the future moving forward to help them actually feel good in the moment to know, and not just some, optimistic, positive thinking, like everything's fine when it's really not. If somebody's really in the dirt, how do we get them out?
So, I've been watching the news lately, like everybody, right? And I haven't been depressed since 2009. And the more I watched the news, I felt those old feelings starting to creep up. And I thought to myself, wow, man, I've really got to knock this off. I really had to cut down on the information because, that information will program the subconscious part of your brain that's always looking for what to focus on. It's called the reticular activating system. That part of your brain is always working, and it filters all the information. So if you're constantly watching the news, not just the news, but this information highway, because there's so much conflicting information. And honestly, I don't want to politicize this, but there's a lot of non-factual things being put forth as being facts now. And that's negative. It's all fear-based. And I also found myself, so I cut off my news, right? I went back to it, started watching it again a little bit the other day. And I went from those feelings of depression that had started to creep back up to now a little bit of anxiety that I've never had in my life, ever, right? So I need to stop with this. I need to find ways to filter information so I have knowledge of what's going on in the world, but not so much information that is programming my reticular activating system to go to places like depression and or anxiety, and find things that I can be grateful for in my life right now. Not worry about the future, not worry about the past, because there's nothing I can do to control that. The only thing I can control is how I feel in the present moment. And that's controlled by the thoughts I think. And so I choose to think about things that I can be grateful for. And I find even more powerful things that I can appreciate in the present moment. Because for me, and this is just my map of the world, gratitude is a little bit more in the past tense. And appreciation, it vibrates very close to love. And I like to find things to appreciate right here, right now. Because that's really all we have anyway, this moment. And each moment, which is really cool about this, is each and every moment of your life is unique. You're never going to have the same moment you had before. And you get the opportunity to appreciate it. It's up to you by what you focus on.
Nice. You always fire me up every time we talk. Every time, man, you fire me up. This is good. But, okay, so riding the coattails of that answer and that question as well, something for everyone listening right now to take away with, and this can be from, your own coaching experience, what you work with clients, or if you were to give somebody one session, say somebody came in and it was the only time they ever got to speak to you, what's one thing you would want them to take away from that would help them for the rest of their life?
So I'd really want them to understand that the behavioral pattern that they feel stuck in, the one that they feel is negative or leading them in the wrong direction, that when someone gets stuck in a pattern like that for too long, many times they'll begin to believe that there is something inherently wrong with them as a human being. There's something wrong with them. And people come in all the time and tell me how messed up they are. And the one thing I want them to understand is the reason they're running that pattern has nothing to do with who they are. It just is a pattern that meets their subconscious emotional needs. And those needs have to get met. Now, if you don't have a better pattern to meet the needs in than the one you're meeting in, so say like depression or anxiety or anger or whatever that pattern is, if you don't have a better pattern to meet those needs, and you're going to keep going back to that pattern over and over. And that is the only reason you're running the pattern. And the one thing I want them to take away from the session is there's nothing wrong with you. Period. Because I'm just a coach. I can't change them. I can't give them anything they have. All I do is I look at myself like Michelangelo, okay? Michelangelo carved a statue of David, but before he did that, it was a giant slab of granite. And he took that slab of granite through Florence, Italy, on a wooden cart with a horse pulling it, wooden wheels most likely, and people kept seeing him everywhere he went. Said, Michelangelo, where are you going with the bigger piece of granite? And says, this is not granite, this is a David. So what do you mean it's a David? That's a granite. He takes it all the way back to his studio, and people ask him that all along the way. He takes it up, puts a scaffold up, and he begins to chip away at it. And what he did was he chipped away everything that wasn't David. And what was left is a masterpiece. I mean, I like to think of every one of my clients as a masterpiece. And they just picked up a bunch of stuff along the way, and they started throwing it on their back and believing it was who they are. But it's not.
So somebody then in that position thinking, maybe living incongruent with how they want to be, or stuck in an identity that maybe they needed at one time, but now they're, we hear this all the time. I feel stuck. Yeah. I just feel stuck. How do I get moving forward? They're in that position of really not knowing what the next step is. When I love what you said, chipping away and removing what you're not. That was amazing. First time I heard the analogy, but it's amazing, right? So along those same lines, to chip away, if somebody was to start on their own, say they didn't come in for a coaching session, say they didn't sit down with you, they were going to chip away at themselves or chip away somewhere, but they don't know where to start. Where would you recommend they start?
It would have to be to become aware of their habitual thoughts. To notice the ones that make them feel negative emotion like fear, or feel like they're not good enough, or they're not worthy of, the best things that life has to offer, like love and romance and passion, and all those things that we all want. And to find ways to shut that self-talk down, the internal dialogue that never shuts off. The part of our brain just keeps working and working and working. I have people come in all the time and they plop down in the chair and just say to me, no matter what I do, I just can't shut my brain off. And I always say to them, well, thank God you can't, because you would die if you did. But I know what they're talking about. Yeah. They're just saying, I can't shut these thoughts down. They just keep running on their own. And I had that experience for years. I used to beat myself up incessantly, and I knew I was doing it. And I tried to stop, but I couldn't. Because you can't shut the brain off. But you can change those thoughts. And you can find a way to change the negative thoughts into positive thoughts. And do that habitually. And if someone does that, they'll see big, big changes. That would be the first thing to work on.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
The challenge with that is, though, quite honestly, if they do that and they see the changes, most likely that won't be sustainable without the rest of the coaching program. And I'm not trying to sell myself on it, but that won't be enough, most likely, to change the subconscious identity. And the subconscious identity is what runs your life. And eventually, if your subconscious identity is telling you you're no good, it's going to take back over and start, that negative dialogue is going to start back up. Or the what if everything bad happens that creates your anxiety is going to start back up. So I wish I had a better answer.
More
sustainable,
answer,
more sustainable. I'd like to bring you more value to this podcast so people could really get something even more powerful out of it. But I think if they just started there and saw how much it would help them move forward, then maybe they could pick up the phone and find a good NLP life coach near them and make that call.
Nice. All right, so I'm going to hit you with a surprise question here. I love asking this question to people. I'm going to put you in a little uncertainty.
All right.
I love asking this question to people because I love hearing responses, and I love seeing other people's maps of the world and really what they believe, okay? And this is going to be the universal, there is no right answer question, so don't worry about your answer, all right? Just let whatever comes to you with it. What is the meaning of life?
Well, here's my meaning of life. And it's essentially the reason we're here. It is to love and to be loved. In that order. And that's it. And really in that space, we got to grow to efficiently love people. We have to grow ourselves and look for ways to grow each other. So we're really here all to help one another and to take care of one another. And I don't mean to sound hokey or corny, but that's my core belief. It's what drives me. It's what gets me up every day to be a coach. It's why I'm the coach I am today, because in 2009, when I decided to become a coach, it was never about me. And it always drove me to, I was newly married, right? And I spent hours working at a business, and then weekend after weekend and seminar after seminar, and they were time consuming and driving to them for years. But I did it because I was driven to pay this gift forward, because it's amazing what this has done for my life and so many other people. And because you've been through it, you know what it does for people. And that's what it is. So we're all differently enabled, right? We all have different gifts. And I tell everybody this, we all have different gifts, but we all share the same gift. And that's the gift of our heart. And our gifts are meant to be shared.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. Nailed it. See, you did great on that.
I wasn't worried about it. I like the uncertainty.
All right.
Honestly.
Good. All right, Dennis. So let everybody know that's listening, thank you. I want to thank you for taking your time out to do this and give them, obviously, invaluable information that they can take forward. But additionally, on top of that, if somebody wants to reach out to you, how can they find you?
Pretty easy. Find me on the web at Westchester, PA, as in Pennsylvania, westchesterpalifecoach.com. And they can call me from the phone number there, click through to my website, find out more information. And if they're interested in doing that, be sure to look at my Google reviews in advance. You're going to work with me. I want you to have high expectations. Hold me to a high standard.
Good. Awesome. Excellent. All right. And everybody else, I'm going to link Dennis's social sites as well onto the podcast once it gets released, so you'll be able to pop over and follow him on Facebook and check him out there. All right. So, Dennis, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Everyone listening, remember, if you just leave this as information, that's all it will ever be. So please take this, what you learned today, apply it, use it, and reinvent your life. Talk to you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Reinvent Your Life podcast. Now go out and apply what you just heard to start your reinvention. Please subscribe, rate, and share this podcast with those that need it most.